Counting down the list, everybody. Welcome in. Warchant.com. We do the top 40 every year. And it's time to talk about those numbers and those players, more importantly. I'm Jeff Cameron. That's Tom Lang. There's Matt Lasser. We're going to go through the names, the numbers, and talk about hows and whys of where they were ranked and how this staff, our staff at Warchant.com, voted them. As always, thanks for watching. Jason Jenkins, boys, leads the way at number 40 here. And I got to say, a player that I had really high hopes for, 6'6", 275 pounds. Florida State desperately needs him to play. Kind of murky. Nobody knows when he'll play, if he'll play. Will he play early? Will he play in the middle of the season? Is he going to play at all? That's because of an off-season injury in which he was in an individual workout. Something happened. They've never really made it abundantly clear. But I think it would be of vital importance. Now, we don't know with Tony White's defense where everybody's going to be. But, guys, Jason Jenkins at 6'6", 270, they'd find a way to play him. Tom, I'll start with you. He comes in at number 40. What do you think of this on the list, and where did you have him?
I think it's perfect placement. That's where I had him at number 40. The reason he's at 40 is because I just don't know how much of the season he'll play. I know you didn't have him on the list, Jeff, and I understand totally why. My thinking at the time of the ranking was if you could even get 4 or 5 games out of him, I think he'll be significant enough in 4 or 5 games that he's still a top 40 player for the entire 12-game season. This is somebody that clearly, I think from an NIL standpoint, Florida State invested in heavily. They thought he was going to be a cornerstone of that defensive front with James Williams, the other major defensive line transfer from Nebraska. I think if he could give you at least a third of the season, he's one of your top 40 players. So that's why I'm kind of playing the middle, and I think that when he came out at 40, I smiled just a little bit because of that.
Matt, you had him at 32, so I would say this. Look, if we knew he was going to play, you're talking about an SEC defensive lineman, played in the league. We played in that league. We know the rigors of the line of scrimmage in that league. It's the thing that separates the SEC from most conferences. I can understand why you had him there. My guess is you're believing he's going to play quite a bit, at least akin to what Tom just described.
Yeah, and if we knew he was going to start right away and he wasn't hurt, he would be top 20 easily, right? Because we know he's going to be one of those playing a lot. But then with him being hurt, it's like I expect him to play a lot later in the season and be a big rotational factor then. So it's kind of same to Tom, where like I know he's going to be a big part of it later on. So that's why he's not down there at 40. He's a little bit above, because for me, the guys below him were ones who are, I think they'll crack the rotation by the end of the year, but not really there yet, or at least close to. So that's why it's not all the way down at the bottom, but still a little bit up there, because he'll make a huge impact when he finally gets into a game, and he'll be one of those guys who might be able to start. If isn't starting, will be very close. And a Tony White defense where you see 4-man, 5-man, 3-man fronts that switches around, you probably should consider him a starter, even though he might not be one of the first ones out there.
Yeah, you put a ribbon on Jason Jenkins for the purposes of this conversation, and it sounds like the three of us, along with the rest of Seminole Nation, would really put our hands together and hope like heck that he gets back in time to play maybe the Alabama game, or certainly in the early season, get back in time for Miami or Virginia, something like that. He could be a key cog, and if he does come back and play a lot of football for Florida State, he would be much higher on this list. Conrad Hussey's a guy at 39 that interests me for a lot of reasons. It's hard to know his role, guys, and I'm going to go back to you, Matt, and have you lead us here. But you go back to 23. This was a guy that we thought pegged for stardom, a stud, a guy who was really going to do some things, a burgeoning stud. But there are health concerns, again, with Conrad Hussey. I feel like we start with a lot of these players further down the list. It's not always about the ability. Some of it's about availability, I guess you could say, and how healthy are they. Conrad Hussey is a player. Your thoughts on him coming in at number 39?
Yeah, he's one of those where if his full talent and everything's on display, he's going to be really good. But we just haven't seen that yet. We've seen glimpses of it in his first year. Haven't really seen it since. Didn't see it much last year, right? And now this DB room is really crowded. He's going to have to earn that spot probably more than he ever has before. So with that, it's kind of hard to see him getting a lot of reps at the beginning of the year. And as long as he does well in fall camp, you could see that. But I don't really, as of now, like he's one of those guys that I put could crack the rotation by the end of the year. But right now, you're not really looking great.
You had him not ranked. I had him not ranked. Tom, I think you had him not ranked as well. Is that correct?
That's correct. He's got a shot. The athleticism. I know that in internal circles within the staff and the training staff, the coaching staff, he's one of the best athletes on the team. But It's the consistency thing. And you're right. 2 years ago, when he was getting backup reps in live games, important games, he was ticketed for a big role in 2024. It didn't materialize, and now you've got a brand new set of eyes, a new safeties coach, in addition to Patrick Surtain. Evan Cooper's now in the fold. It's an uphill battle for Conrad, I think, this year.
Danzy comes in at 38, and look, I'm just going to say this, fellas. It seems to me you ought to be able to find a way to utilize a player who may legitimately be the fastest wide receiver in the country. Like, you can't possess a weapon like that and then be like, we don't really know. Don't really know. You know, you've got to find a way to get that guy into your offense. I don't care if it's tricks. I don't care if it's just a straight 9 route and let the fastest guy be the fastest guy on the field. I don't care if it's a reverse, whatever. Micah Danzy has to play a role as a playmaker in this offense at some point. I got to believe he has a chance to be higher than 38. Tom, Micah Danzy.
Yeah, the two of us had him pretty high. I think the two highest rankings on the staff, Aslan is also a believer in him. It's just, this is about Gus Malzahn isolating matchups for a player. And he might, look, he could have 12 catches for the year, but 7 of them are explosive plays.
I thought too.
And at that point, I think it's a top player for you. I don't know what we'll see in terms of special teams. Does he factor in one of the return games? I know Gavin Blackwell, the North Carolina transfer, was pretty good in that regard. Squirrel White has been good on special teams as well. So I don't know if Danzy has a home as a returner, but that speed last year, they already put it on film, wheel routes and rail routes out of the backfield, and you saw Danzy blow people away. So, yeah, I would think that this is a player that Gus Malzahn's salivating for. If I was going to argue against myself and against where we had him, I'd say that Jalen Lucas is going to fill that role, and he's kind of more of a football player than Danzy is. But, again, I still think the reason I had him close to 30 in my rank is because I think they're going to find a reason to put him on the field. And when he's going to run down the field in a situation against a safety or a linebacker, guys, he's going to be wide open because he's just that fast.
Yeah, I had him at 33. Matt Lasser thinks he sucks. He's got him nowhere in this top 40. He whispered to me before we started the video that he has him in the 60s. So your thoughts on Danzy, Matt?
He could be really good. Again, Gus Malzahn doesn't rotate receivers. He's a receiver now. But if you use him in that specialty role of, again, wheel route. So when I was in Orlando to watch, see Gus Malzahn and Tony White speak in that coach's clinic, he always said, we're going to find the best guy who runs a post route. And he's going to go out there and he's going to run a damn post route. And that's probably all he's going to do. So maybe if Danzy's the best guy on the team who could run a wheel, it's probably between him and Jalen Lucas are the two you're looking at, right? That he's probably going to go out and run a wheel. And when we see him walk out in the field, that's probably what he's going to do. So I think in this year where he's a redshirt freshman, you're probably looking at more of a specialty guy that gets a couple more reps than last year, to where next season Jalen Lucas is gone. He's taking more of that bigger role. And he jumps up higher in my top 40 then. It's not that he's not good. I just don't think he'll get as much playing time as we think this year. And next year, maybe next season, that's his big time to shine.
It's weird for us to have a discussion about a kicker, at least when I'm driving. But I have him on the list as well. Tom didn't rank him. Aslan had him at 35. I'm talking about Jake Weinberg. I had him at 35. Where'd you have him, Matt? 38?
38.
Here's the deal. As we talk about the kicker at Florida State, like we know it's important to have a good kicker, but you guys are going to witness, and we don't know how the accuracy will be. And that's the big question mark about Weinberg. But buddy, any of you listening to this, if you didn't know anything about him, he's got one of the strongest legs I have ever seen. And Florida State has had a run of great kickers over the years. And we know that, right? But I mean, this is a guy who's, I would say, effortless power. We've talked about pitchers who throw 100 and doesn't look like they're throwing hard. It's effortless power. That this kid has that. We watched in the scrimmage. He had a 58, 59-yard field goal with a lot of room to spare. He also missed a 40-something yarder by about 50 yards left. So, this is kind of the question mark, guys, when we talk about it. Matt, I'll come back to you. The leg strength isn't going to be an issue. Accuracy is, and none of us can really predict how a kid's going to react in a college football game, in a college football atmosphere. We know what they did in high school. How do you handle the pressures of going out there when your team needs you in a game like Alabama, first game of the year, sold out, nation watching, all on the line? it's the end of half. We got a 48-yarder. Are you calm? You collected? You good? You giving us points before we go in the locker room? Or are you a nervous wreck? Nobody really knows until we get out there.
No, not at all. Especially with he played at American Heritage in high school, but not the real American Heritage. He played at the academic one. So it's one of those to where that can play a factor too. Where
American Heritage.
he didn't even have a big high school crowd. So I can see where that comes into play. But when you look at last year, kickers. The reason why I just had it ranked is kickers are a lot of times high scorers. You're gonna need them. They're gonna be an important part. They're going to get you points, and they're going to be needed at one point. They have to be, in my opinion, has to be on the top 40 somewhere, even if it's low, just because they're going to play, and they're going to have to, they have a job to do. And last year, Fitz did it well. Hopefully, Fitz has been on the phone with Jake a little bit and talking him through how to deal with that big crowd because he's just never done it before. I didn't even think about that factor, to be honest with you. But, yeah, I mean, he's got the leg. He was a number one ranked kicker, at least at one point. They change rankings all the time out of high school. So the expectations are there. We can call him a 5-star kicker. We should talk to him about him like other 5 stars maybe. But I think he'll be decent. We'll just got to see when it's like Mike talks about, the moment of truth.
Tom, you just maybe kind of following my old adage of not having a kicker in your top 40?
I usually would have a kicker in the top 40. Last year, I'm sure I had Fitzgerald in the top 40. It's the volatility in this situation. Also, I want to know what Florida State's going to do on the 35-yard line in a 4th and 2.5. Are they going to trust his leg? Are they going to go for it? How about at the 30-yard line? It's 4th and 2.5. So last year, Mike didn't do a great job of trusting one of the best weapons he had, if not the best weapon he had on the team in Fitzgerald. He hardly got an opportunity and several chances to kick from 48, 51, 54, and we knew he had the leg, and we knew he was going to be accurate. In this instance, I feel like for a couple of reasons. One, the situational management. I wonder how much they're going to trust a freshman in this situation. And then two, I really feel like it comes down to his first 3 or 4 meaningful kicks this year, and it's going to help determine from a confidence standpoint how the year goes for Jake. Because if he's that wild in practice to where, he can bomb it from 60 plus, but then he could miss a 42-yard field goal in spectacular fashion, that gives me some nerves. Doesn't mean he won't be important, just means that I'm not willing to put him in a top 40 slot.
I think we have to hope that early on he makes a few kicks in a big game like Alabama. And then from there, he's just brimming with confidence because talent's not the issue. So if you gain that confidence early, as both of you have kind of pointed out, you feel like it should be smooth sailing. If he misses a few big kicks early, knock on wood, that doesn't happen, then you wonder about will he gain it in time to be a consistent contributor for you. Obviously, Florida State looking to improve in the scoring department. You're going to need him to make some kicks. The last guy on our list, at least for the purposes of this video, is Charles Lester, who I think – really at one time had a chance to be a starter. I believe he's kind of been passed by Rawls and maybe Q. And, the Noles went out and got Jeremiah Wilson. So, to me, I don't know where Lester fits. That's why I didn't rank him. I think for the people that watch these videos, when we talk about any number of these guys in the secondary, if you hear that, Matt had him ranked, but Tom and I didn't, or you look at these and you say, well, why are they so low? We don't know the roles of a lot of these guys. We don't know the starters for a lot of these guys. We don't know how Tony White views this. We don't know. So there's a lot of unknowns. It's hard to definitively rank people when you're not even sure if they're going to play. You're not even sure how the coach views them or is going to utilize them. And frankly, and this isn't a shot, not being able to see practices. I mean, you just don't know their roles. And so I feel like that's why Charles Lester came in at 36. Matt, I'll start with you since you did have him ranked.
Yeah, I mean, he's one. He has, again, like Conrad Hussey, the talent's there to where if he finally gets it going, it's going to be good. But I think it's more of a confidence issue at this point. Look at when he first enrolled in the spring. I think it was you that said, Jeff, you just can see how much fun he's having out there. It's refreshing to watch. Yeah. And as you go to practice the rest of the season, he was on scout team for a little bit. You saw that completely shatter and go down to the ground. And it just kind of, you could see he was getting frustrated and all that kind of stuff. So I think he just needs to get that confidence back. He's someone, obviously he was a 5-star by some companies coming out of high school, and you come in to college thinking, well, I've always been the best. Why wouldn't I be the best here? And then you get knocked down a peg because everyone else was like that in high school too. So I think last year, that's just what he's been dealing with, and he needs to come from that. I know some people in the program know he can, and that's there. They know the talent's there, and if they just get it right for him, they get his head in the right spot, he can do well. But again, at this point, you have to break into that rotation that is very deep right now. So he might see himself on scout team again, but he still needs to go out and earn that spot.
Well, and Tom, I think you'll allude to this. Like, emotional maturity matters too. Like, you got to be able to get a handle on disappointment and learn to channel it in good ways.
Yeah, I think both defensive backs that we're discussing today, those are the question marks. I think if Conrad Hussey comes in and he's determined and is level when it comes to his approach, I think he plays this year. He's that gifted. Charles, I think that could still be the case, but when you bring in Jeremiah Wilson and knocks everybody else down a peg, maybe you come in as a fourth defensive back or fourth corner in certain settings. Again, you're right. This is where how Tony White deploys the back unit, the back 7 or 8 players, not on his defensive front. I mean, it might be very situation dependent, and maybe Charles Lester finds a spot in a certain passing situation, against a roster that goes 4 wide instead of a team that likes to use the H-back or the tight end a little bit more. It's hard to sift through all that stuff, but the one thing I do know about Charles Lester is that from seeing him on campus in Florida State gear, that 6'1" that they list him as is legitimate. Sometimes at 6'1", you're not so sure. I think maybe the training staff did a guy a solid. He is a long player in terms of as a corner, and he's the modern corner in that sense. So the physical gifts are there too. It's not just about his athleticism post snap. I'm talking about the physical gifts before you line up and snap the ball. He's a guy that can line up and play most receivers one-on-one. He's got the build to do it, so that's not a question either.
We got another list coming your way, so stay tuned to that. Like, subscribe, pass around, do all those things. Until next time, thanks for being a member of Warchant.com.